All right, welcome everyone to our first Level Up webinar series for Financial Edge NXT. We are so glad that you have signed up and joined us today. We are going to get started right now. So here's the agenda for today. We're going to do some introductions with our Financial Edge consultants that are on the call. We have some questions that we're going to ask you, and then we are going to dive right into the questions that you all asked us when you registered. A few housekeeping items for this call. We are recording it. I will send out the recording and the slide deck to you all later this afternoon. So if you have to jump early or if you join late, you'll get the whole recording. Or if you don't show up at all but you registered, you'll still get the recording later on when I send it to you. We have a Q&A section in the Teams call. We also have a chat section. Feel free to ask questions as we're going along. I'll be monitoring the chat, and we'll either get to them kind of in the flow of our conversation, or we have a slide towards the end where we're going to address any questions that have come in the chat. So my name is Kevin Wood, and I am the Director of Sales here at NPact. I will serve as your host today. I have a background in Razor's Edge, and so this will be mostly like just hearing French today for me, I guess. But we're so happy for you to be here with us. I am from Cincinnati, Ohio. And I worked for 15 years in the nonprofit world. I worked at a university, I worked at a healthcare foundation, and I worked at a high school here in Cincinnati. So Denise, I'll turn it over to you for an introduction.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Denise Appelgren. I am a Principal Solutions Consultant here at NPact. So I work with both Razor's Edge clients and organizations using Financial Edge. I have a background with having worked for a community foundation locally and then moving into the consulting space where I work with lots of different organizations and love every minute of it. I am in Northern Illinois, and I will tell you it is storming off and on here today. So if for any reason you suddenly lose me, I sincerely apologize. But hopefully the storms will not be bad enough that I'll lose power. So Rupa?
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Rupa Shivaprasad, and I'm based out of New York City area. Really great to be here. My background is a lot of 15 years of accounting experience with nonprofits and foundations, and also kind of focusing on IT. I used Financial Edge as an end user myself, and then eventually moved to Blackbaud to do some implementation work. And I'm a senior financial consultant here at NPact. And yeah, it's just exciting to work with my nonprofit clients, and happy to help any way I can. Thanks.
Jay?
Hi, everybody. I'm Jay Wright, financial consultant here at NPact. Coming to you live from Greenville, South Carolina. Looking forward to helping you guys out with Financial Edge. I bring 20 years experience working with Blackbaud products, primarily in Financial Edge, but I do also have some experience in Razor's Edge, as well as I was a technical account manager at Blackbaud for a number of years. So glad to be here and hope this session is helpful for everyone.
Yep. And I before we get into the next slide, I see some people are having some issues with chat. I see some people chatting, some people in the Q&A. I had a little pop-up on my chat that said it's possible that some people have message-related policies that will not allow you to chat. So jump into the Q&A and put all your comments, questions in there. But we'll be monitoring both the chat and the Q&A section. So we're going to start off with a couple, I guess, one poll question for you. This kind of just gives us an idea of the kind of experience that we have here in the group with us. So I'm going to launch this poll. We'd love for you to answer it. And I'm going to answer I'm brand new to Financial Edge because that's the truth. Nice. We've got some folks that are brand new. We've got some folks that are 1 to 3 years. And I love to see the people that have been here for 10 plus years it's true that we're never too old. We're always can learn new things about the software that we've been working with for so long. Cool. So NPact is a Blackbaud channel partner. We are not Blackbaud, and so we can't answer any of the questions about things that are coming down the road with releases and specific kind of maybe technical product related questions. I have a few links here that are good resources supplied by Blackbaud, so that you can do your own research. And also, when you log into Financial Edge NXT, on the home screen, you see the updates and the what's new section that we have a screenshot here. This is also a good place because they will update this as new releases and new things are available for you to use. And I'm going to turn it over to Jay to answer our first set of questions.
Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate that. So REFE integration. It's nothing to be scared of, I promise. It's very, very straightforward. And once you get down this this process and how things work, you'll understand it a lot better. And I think this first batch of questions really revolves around what is the REFE integration, right? And it's the joining of these two databases essentially, and allowing Razor's Edge to take the gift information that you've put in and post it formally over to the Financial Edge. And that does come over as in the form of an unposted batch, so that your Financial Edge folks can authenticate that batch, approve it, and then go through the normal posting process like they normally would. The connection itself, just to kind of get a little technical for just a second, is made on the back end of the product. So we do involve Blackbaud with that, getting the systems connected formally. But from there, what we do is we work with our clients to help them understand exactly what the RE fund is doing, and especially the GL distribution tab. That's the key to all of this. And if you're familiar with the GL distribution tab, you'll know that you have all your gift types, and you've got your debits and your credit accounts, and then you also have a project that you can link that to. So normally you would, debit cash and credit revenue. So you fill in all of the GL distribution tab with the accounts, and then you have a one-to-one project relationship with that RE fund with an FE project. So that when your data entry person enters in all of your gift information, you're ready to post, you just do that process, and what the system's going to do is it's going to take those account numbers depending on what gift type you choose, because every gift type has its own distribution potentially. It's going to take that distribution from that gift type and marry it with that project and bring it over with that project, so that your Financial Edge folks can actually formally post it. But it's a very easy process to go through as far as setting it up and using it on a weekly or monthly basis, just depending on how often you need to post. You don't have to set up every single fund for posting in Razor's Edge if you don't intend to post them. So sometimes people will have a historical RE fund that is not going to see any further activity, and so you wouldn't need to catch that up or anything with the information that the Financial Edge has in it. So Kevin, we'll go to the second slide. How do I import from RE to FE? If you don't want to use the integration process like I've outlined it, first I'd want to talk to you and get the why on that, because this process is so easy. It streamlines your posting process and procedure so much. It really does take the guesswork and the human mistake out of it. But if you're in a situation where you just can't do that, then you can import there's two methods technically. There's using the journal entry batch creator Excel add-in, and I'll repeat that. It's called the journal entry batch creator Excel add-in. And this was used in the interim in FENXT when importing wasn't quite available in FE, but journal entries were still needed to do some importing with our clients. So that was something that this is a little add-on, a little plug-in, if you will, that Blackbaud has out on their website. I would say go to Knowledge Base and check that out. It's really a straightforward method. It looks like an Excel sheet. You simply copy and paste information into it, and then it creates a batch. The other way of importing, which has now been moved formally from database view over to web view, is just the native tool for importing. And that's available for journal entries under the general ledger. And then there's an import section now. And that's one of the types that you can create for that. Integration with RE and FE, posting GIFs, how is it received from RE to FE? We talked about that as in the form of that unposted batch. And how do you make adjustments or corrections? That's a great question. Adjustments and correction and reversals can be created in the system by either creating an adjustment or deleting a GIF so that a reversal is automatically created in Razor's Edge, so that when you post those adjustments and reversals, that transaction activity will go over and correct the information that was previously posted for that gift. On GIFs in the Razor's Edge, changes to GIFs are made through that adjustment process, like I mentioned. On the gift record itself, to keep track of changes, especially for audit trail, an adjustment will keep track of all the previous gift information, like the amount, the appeal, the fund, the campaign and package, and will generate the correcting entries to update the GL. The initial gift, if the initial gift has already been posted to the general ledger, then the gift adjustment is needed to make the change. The adjustment option can be found on a gift record from the gift menu. So on the gift record itself, if you click gift in the top taskbar, a menu will drop down and adjustment is one of the fields available to you. If the initial gift has already been adjusted, the gift record has an adjustment tab, in other words, then there are two options. If the existing adjustment has not been posted to the general ledger, it can be edited because there's nothing that needs to be adjusting at that point because it's not posted. If the existing adjustment is posted to the general ledger, then that's when you're going to need to create a new adjustment from the adjustment tab. Now note, all fields can't be adjusted. If you need to adjust a field that is not available, such as gift date or gift type, the recommendation there is to adjust a gift to $0 and then add a new gift with the proper information. After creating the adjustment on the posted gift, the adjustments will need to be posted to update the general ledger, and the entries will be reversed or undone. It'll undo the previous gift information and update the general ledger with the new information. If the adjustment is not posted, the status adjustment pending displays on the miscellaneous tab of the gift record, just to let you know that. And a gift can have only one pending open adjustment at a time. After you post a pending adjustment, you can make other adjustments on the gift as needed. And also, to kind of finish up this topic, adjustments will not post to the general ledger for gifts with a GL post status of not posted or do not post, because there's nothing to correct to begin with. If the original gift did not formally post over to the Financial Edge, there's no correction needed. It can just be edited there and then posted just like you would any other normal gift. That's all I had for my section. I'll turn it over to Rupa, who will take our next section. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you guys, and I hope this was helpful.
All right, thank you, Jay. Yeah, so we got quite a few questions on reports. We, looked at how we could bucket these. Again, I want to try my best to answer some of these at a high level. We'll definitely be covering some of these topics in a future session in more detail. If your organization had a really specific question, we may not be able to address it today, but we'll reach out to you offline, and you could also feel free to reach out to us. So the main question that I wanted to address based on what we got is, what are some reasons reports don't work? And how could we troubleshoot that? And this is a really good question because it kind of encompasses the what not to do, what to be aware of, and how important it is to validate your custom chart organizers and continue to maintain them, because that's one of the main reasons reports don't work. Let's say you create a new account, you have to remember to go back and update your custom chart organizer, especially if you use manual account code ranges instead of reporting attributes. It's really important. Anyway, so I'm just going to go into steps for troubleshooting. You run your report, it's not working. What I would recommend your first step should be is, instead of running that same report, you have that option, where you can pick the chart template, pick the default chart template and run the report. If that works, that tells us that, okay, system's good. At 99.9% of the time, it will work, right, with the default, and you'll get the result that you need to see. So then that kind of indicates that, okay, the problem is with our custom chart organizer. It's because there could be human error, right? And it requires some maintenance. There are some rare cases where the default may not work, and this does not apply to a lot of folks. It applies to folks where if your fund setting requires balance, it requires preserving details on optional segments. That is when you have to make sure, like if you set up a new department segment, you have to make sure that you've actually set up the net asset account for whatever new combination of P&L. Otherwise, the P&L just doesn't have a place to close to, and the system won't remind you that, hey, you have to create a net asset account. So that's something to kind of be aware of. And again, that doesn't apply to most folks. But all in all, default should work. And then the next step is, okay, now I have my custom chart organizer. What do I do? How do I kind of troubleshoot that, right? So one of the things I like to start with is you run your default, that works. So now next step is you go to the general ledger chart organizer section, and I've kind of have this little image here on the screenshot. So a common issue I often find is that validating chart organizers, which is really important, it has to be done from time to time, especially on the reports that you're running often, just to kind of indicate what accounts you may be missing or what's a duplicate, right? So first things first, you have your chart template. This is, let's say this is the one, report category. It's not working. When I run my reports with it, I'm not getting the result I need, but when I run it with the default, it works. So I want to validate this chart organizer to make sure that I'm not missing anything, or there's no other issues like maybe duplicates. Maybe I have the same account included twice in one of my manual groupings here, right? So hit run validation report, and then you should have a file, a validation report file called default. And I have seen on many occasions that that doesn't exist. If it doesn't exist, your first step is to create one. So you hit the add button, call it default, and just make sure there's no filtering on it. It just includes everything, right? So then you can run your validation report from there, and it will tell you, you run it to compare it to the default, and it will tell you what's missing or what's duplicate. So the other thing I've seen is with your chart organizers, they can get kind of unruly over time. So some best practices there are try to, as much as you can, have one chart organizer for a full set of financials, meaning having a separate chart organizer for income statement, a separate one for balance sheets, not necessary. You can have one master, and then depending on the type of report you're running, it's going to take the accounts it needs. So then when I'm validating it, in one shot, it'll tell me what balance sheet and income statement accounts are missing. Because in order to generate a full set of financials, you have to make sure all those accounts are captured, right? So, so now that's going to segue into our next slide here. Yep. So this was another question we got about, I want to know more about the visual chart organizer and how can I streamline my reports. So one thing to note is that is no longer called the visual chart organizer. I think that was in database view, it was called that. It is now called a chart organizer, and you could find it under the general ledger menu. One recommendation I have with regard to like how to streamline and build your reports is using reporting attributes. So generally what you want to do is, if you could set up like on your account code, you want to make this a required field. You want to set up something called a reporting attribute, make it a required field. And what this reporting attribute is like a bucket. Your bucketing could be, let's use your audited financial statement, for example. You have like a drop down of all the different buckets there. And by making it a required field, when you set up a new account code, you have to pick something from that drop down, right? So that's one part of it. Then the other part is when you're designing your chart organizers, custom chart organizers, in this screenshot, you can see where it says choose accounts. Typically, this is set to by account code ranges, but you can toggle to using advanced filters. And then you can say, okay, give me everything in this grouping where my reporting attribute is salaries. So boom. So it's just going to pull in everything that has that attribute assigned, rather than if you were to use ranges where you're like, give me my account code, I don't know, 6,000 to 6,010 for salaries. And tomorrow you set up a new account code, 6,011. You have to come back, remember to update that range. So it kind of eases the maintenance of it as well, because that could get pretty crazy over time. And I've seen just some reports with a lot of filtering and a lot of different account codes. So definitely just kind of try to keep it simple. And those are just some little things we could do like to streamline. So obviously there's a lot more, but we're going to keep it brief. So then I'm going to go to the next question after this, Kevin, the next slide. Yeah, so this was a good question we got. How do you design project reports to reconcile with the general ledger? And I worked with a lot of foundations, and this looks like it might have come from, I guess, a client that's using a lot of like projects. It's a great way to track all your different endowments. One thing is a general ledger is super detailed, right? It's a really good tool for kind of researching, okay, what specific item you might be looking for. So when it comes to reconciliation, I would say kind of relying on reports like the TB, right? That's one of them. And using a set of 3 reports. I call it like the 3 report method. That's kind of my own, I guess, my own spin on it. So you need a balance sheet, you need an income statement, and you need a custom management report, right? So how are you going to set this up? For this example, I'm going to assume that we are running this for all projects and we are not going to filter anything. So step 1 is you set up your balance sheet, right? And then you're going to have columns to kind of delineate. You're going to filter on the columns, and you're going to have like, let's say you have a specific, like your fund segment might represent unrestricted or temp restricted or, permanent. You have that filtering on the vertical. A lot of foundation clients might have net asset type at the end, where it could be, your corpus or your earnings. So there's different ways of doing it, but you want to filter, and you have your grant total. You're going to set up your income statement too in the same format, right? Then your next step is going to be using a custom management report. This is a great way to kind of help reconcile your project. What's special about a custom management report is that it can capture both balance sheet and income statement accounts, depending on how you set it up. Typically, when you open up a new custom management report, it starts off with, okay, it has the first column for the opening balance of net assets, and then it has a column for revenue, expenses, your transfers, and then ending. So kind of using that technique here, in this screenshot, there's something a little more complex because I've made 2 different sections, right? One for the whole permanently restricted piece, and then one for like appreciation. But this can be set up. So let's say I have my 3 endowments. The ending is $37,000. This is all I have on let's say this is all the projects on my GL. This is everything. Technically, that ending balance, when I go and run my balance sheet, and in the endowments corpus column at the bottom where you have like the net asset breakdown, I should see that 37, right? Similarly, if I have my income statement, I should be able to also tally up, okay, different totals here. Like in this case, it's just kept very simple, but your total contributions that are restricted would tie to that number. It's really important that on all 3 reports, if you do choose to filter, that you keep the filtering consistent. But for purposes of doing like an audit, I would say this is a good packet to have where you have everything included and you're able to see that detail. So and the general ledger is a great tool to kind of research. So that's how I would recommend reconciling the 3. But yeah, so I think that's it from me. So I'll pass it over to Denise. Thank you.
Thanks, Rupa.
Hello, everybody. So I'm going to talk a little bit about reconciliations. And And I'm not going to read through the questions for you. These questions summarize the questions that we received related to reconciliations. And then I'm just going to talk through kind of my recommended order of operations, some best practices related to running those reconciliation reports, and what to do to troubleshoot any out of balance condition that you might find during that reconciliation process. And then we'll talk a little bit about the closing options within Financial Edge. So in terms of the kind of the order of operations that I recommend that you reconcile and verify that everything is posted from your expenses module if you're using that, from your AP, your AR, tuition management if you're an education institution that is using that software, your Razor's Edge or other CRM if you're not using Razor's Edge as your CRM, your fixed assets. And then after all of those modules have been reconciled and everything has been posted from all of that work, then I recommend your bank reconciliation be completed. And after all of that is done, then I recommend that you run any allocations that you have, whether it's investment performance or it's, your expense allocations that you might have in your system. You want to do that typically as the last thing that you do in that reconciliation process. Once you've got everything reconciled and it looks good, then you can soft close your period by going to that fiscal year's area of general ledger settings and toggling that switch to closed. That's easily undone, as I'm sure you guys are all aware who've been using the software. If you do find that you have a correction that you need to make to a prior period. And then, once everything is done and ready to go, you can run your final financial reports. Best practices for smooth reconciliation and the things that I recommend looking at first when troubleshooting an out of balance condition include, verifying that in your business rules, you're not allowing manual posting directly to the GL using the same journal codes that you have set up for your subledgers. So if you have a journal code of AP that you're using for accounts payable, you don't want to be able to go directly into journal entry and use AP as the journal code to post to the general ledger directly. The reason for that is because as soon as you start posting manual transactions using that same journal code as the subledger, you've compromised your ability to identify where a transaction originated. And that can be often critical in trying to troubleshoot an out of balance condition. You want to make sure that you're making adjustments to any subledger transactions in the source subledger. And then post it to the GL from there. So if you have an invoice correction because you posted something to the wrong expense account, you want to go into AP invoices and correct that invoice and post that invoice adjustment to the GL rather than going to the GL and just simply reclassifying that expense. And the reason for that is because if the subledgers flow from the subledger module to FE, general ledger, but they don't flow backwards. So when you post directly to the GL, you're not going to be able to see those transactions in the associated subledger. It's a one-way flow. So you want to make sure that all your subledgers are posted. And you can do that by running validation reports on your post parameters for each subledger. Make sure there are no filters or date limiters on those parameters to make sure that there's nothing that you have, outstanding. And then you can also run a GL detail report that includes not yet posted transactions. And if it's not posted from a subledger, it will say in that report that it's not posted yet. And also, if it's not posted from the GL, from just, a journal entry, you'll be able to see those as well. Report settings. So when you go into your subledger reports and you're running those reports that you're going to reconcile to your GL detail, you want to make sure that you're using the correct dates in order to properly reconcile to your GL. So your aging dates, for example, for accounts payable and accounts receivable, you want to use the last day of the fiscal period that you are reconciling as the calculate as of date. You want to use, for your transaction dates, you want to use all dates. And then for post dates, this is where you want to limit those dates to include only those transactions through the last day of the fiscal period that you're reconciling. You want to use a specific range for that. And you want to leave the beginning or the start date blank. The system is going to tell you that that is a required field. It is not. You can actually run the report without including that start date so that it captures everything. And of course, because the aging report is only going to show you what's outstanding, it doesn't matter. You're not going to get a bunch of old stuff unless it's actually not been paid. And then any settings in the reports that are related to showing details, you want to make sure that you have those turned on. You want to include any options that are posted to the GL, such as unapplied credits, deleted items with reversals after the aging as of date. You want to make sure that you're not including those, because if it posted after the last day of the period that you're reconciling, you want the original transaction to show up, because that's going to be included in your GL balance. You don't want it to go away with the reversal in your subledger, because it still exists in your GL until the date of that posting. You also want to run your reports. If you've done all of your prep work and you've verified that everything is posted, you don't want to include not yet posted transactions when you are running those reconciliation reports. And then RE pledge reports. When you're running those pledge reports to reconcile to your GL, you want to leave the gift date set to all dates, and you want to identify a specific range for the post date. You want to have that beginning date again set to the earliest date of your database. And then just the end date should be the last day of the fiscal period that you're reconciling. The reason for that is if the pledge is in a prior period and you only include last fiscal period for your date range, the payments associated with that pledge are also not going to show up, and neither will the pledge. It won't include those outstanding balances. So it's really critical that you get those date ranges correct. And then bank feeds for your bank reconciliation. If you're using bank feeds, you want to refresh those feeds. FE will do its best to match those bank transactions that are being imported through that Yodlee third-party connector to your bank register and mark those as cleared, but it's not perfect. So I always recommend, if you're using bank feeds, that you refresh and review those transactions on a daily basis. That's going to be the best way to avoid feeling overwhelmed at the end of a month, especially if you have lots of transactions. If after, all of these things are done in preparation for your reconciliation, you do find that you're out of balance, then I recommend running your subledger reports to Excel and then running your GL detail report to Excel also. And then it's really a matter of just going down that list, right, and matching from your subledger to your GL and marking those transactions that line up and finding what's missing on one side or the other. And again, the most common out of balance reason that I find is that transaction date versus the post date, that those dates don't match, and you have a post date in a different period than what your transaction date was. Just to kind of quickly wrap things up, you can soft close periods by simply toggling those periods to closed after your monthly reconciliation is done. For fiscal years, you can optimize those to temporarily write balances to a table in the background to speed up report generation. And if it's not this year, not last year, but the prior years, you can hard close those. But remember that hard close cannot be undone. So you want to be careful if you choose to do that. That's all I have for today. Anybody? I am glad to have been able to speak to you today, and I think we'll probably talk more in depth on this topic in a later session.
Yes. Thank you very much, Denise and Rupa and Jay. Excuse me. I've been keeping an eye on the Q&A, and so have the other consultants here, and I think we have addressed all of the questions that have been posted. So I'm just scrolling down here a little bit to the beginning. I think we have, I think we've at least commented on all the questions. If you have any, we have about 7 minutes left. So if you have any questions, any follow-up from things that have been presented today, feel free to drop them in the chat. I have a couple more slides that we're going to go over. But yeah, continue to ask those questions and we'll keep an eye on it. Now, I have another poll question for you. The intention of these webinars is to be kind of thought leadership as much as possible. But if there's anything that any of our folks talked about today that that made you think like, wow, I could really use some additional help from NPact, I'm going to launch this poll here. And rest assured, if you select the first option, expect an email from me sometime this week. But I do also see a lot of our current clients on the call and on the registration list today. So thank you all for being very valued members of the NPact family. And yeah, we'll leave that poll question up for a few. Great. Now, the next one we're also going to launch, and like I said, this is the first one we've done of these. We really want to make sure we are presenting material for you that is going to be beneficial. So I'm going to launch this. This is going to be a word cloud. And if you don't know how word clouds work, I just want you all to kind of answer. You can answer more than once, I think. But kind of just say in a word or two, what is your biggest struggle with your financial edge right now? And as we get more popular responses, those words will get larger on the screen. And that'll give us a really good idea of kind of topics that we can talk about later on in the year. We will have this webinar every month. We have the first couple kind of topics scheduled, but if there's anything that's kind of burning and it's something that we hear that's a common error that a lot of people are having, we will make sure we address it on a future webinar. Nice. Some good things here. All right, so some ways to stay in touch with us and some things that are kind of coming up that you all may be interested in. If you have ever heard your Razor's Edge counterparts talk about the Facebook user group that exists, that's been around for a number of years, it's got like 4,500 members in it. There is not one that exists for Financial Edge users until now. As of a few days ago, there is a Financial Edge user group on Facebook. This QR code will take you to that group, and you can ask to join. I will make sure everyone gets admitted. But this is this is like the watering hole for Financial Edge users. It's a good place for networking. It's also a good place to get questions answered that are really specific to kind of what it is you're working on. Oftentimes, if you're struggling with something, or if you're having a problem with trying to get a task completed within Financial Edge, chances are someone else is as well. or someone else has found a way to kind of answer that question. So this is a good place to ask questions, answer questions, network, or commiserate about struggles within the software. So there's that. That'll be included in the slide deck when I send it out. And then also for next month, or for later this month and next month, we have our Level Up Razor's Edge series that will be next Wednesday. And we're going to do a very similar Ask Us Anything about reports. So if you use Razor's Edge as well, and you haven't joined one of these, be sure to join. They're just as educational as this one was today, but we're focusing on the Razor's Edge. And then next month for Financial Edge, we will be doing another Q&A, but about managing your endowment and your investments. And there's the QR code for that registration link as well. So some of the things that NPact, some of the services that we offer, we do formalized database assessments. We do virtual or on-site training. So classroom style or 30 minutes at a time, kind of virtual. We can record those sessions. And then also we just do consulting hours. And those are, everything is custom scoped to whatever it is, kind of problems that you need help solve. I often say that we like to knock down the barriers between your systems, so in this case, Financial Edge, and you delivering your mission or you doing your job better. And so whatever that is, as you heard before, our Financial Edge consultants have been doing this for a really long time, and there are very few problems, if any, that they haven't heard before and have been able to help their clients kind of work through. So those are some of the things that we offer. Feel free to respond to that email that I send to you later if you have any questions about anything that was discussed today, or if you have any questions about working with NPact, I'd be happy to field those calls as well. So thank you all very much. Thank you to our presenters. Thank you to everyone kind of behind the scenes at NPact that helped make this webinar happen. And we look forward to seeing you all next month.